Hi, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on what side of the coast you're on in the US. Welcome to our webinar today for Smart Data for CRE Decisions, together with Resimplify. My name is Devin. I am the head of product for Sensei, which is a population intelligence platform. And today I have with me a guest from Resimplify.
Hi, I'm Vicky Reddy, and I'm the head of product at Resimplify.
So before we dive in, we're just going to give you a brief background of, what is the Sensei data, and then I'm going to let Vicky talk a little bit about what is Resimplify. We entered a partnership about, what was it, Vicky, 9 months ago now, I think, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
And we've been
correct.
working tirelessly on the Sensei side to bring in the Resimplify data into the Sensei platform. As we've been working together as partners, we've seen a lot of similarities for different gaps in the market and integrity behind the data. So our goal and part of our mission is to always make sure that with Sensei, we are bringing our clients the most accurate representation of what's happening in the market at the ground level for consumers moving in and out of various markets across the United States. So before we dive into what Resimplify data is, just a little bit of background around Sensei. Sensei is powered by Rushmore Labs, and it covers demographic and migration data since the start of 2018. We have a proprietary database of 270 million US adults inside of our database. And what makes this so interesting is one of the most common questions we get is, well, how is this different from the US Census? Well, that's really easy for us to answer. We are not starting with a panel of individuals and making estimates that run on a 18 to 24 month lag. Instead, we're starting with an individual of 270 million and we add from the ground up. So if you ask us when we get into what does coverage look like across the United States, I'm going to tell you we don't have any gaps because we are roughly covering every adult that's living inside of the US. So that is the very first differentiator from the US Census. The second thing that we differentiate on is our timeliness. So today, as we talk about why we're bringing in the Resimplify data and giving you guys a demo of the platform and some of its latest capabilities, what you're going to notice is that the latest data point that we have is the first quarter of 2025. We run about a 60-day lag, which is very different than an 18-month lag. So as we think about Sensei as a whole, we already had these core capabilities of mover demographics, migration trends, forecasts into the future, building out trade areas. But now together with Resimplify, we brought in together this idea of doing property search and identifying commercial listings that work whether you are an investor, an analyst within the ECDev field to really bring together a more cohesive lens through your real estate decisions. So at this point, I'm going to let Vicky talk a little bit about what Resimplify is and then why we chose to bring this data into the platform.
Awesome. Thanks, Devin. So Resimplify is the AI native data and listings infrastructure for commercial real estate. And our paramount goal is to democratize access to CRE listings and data. Commercial real estate data and the industry, it's highly fragmented. So listings are spread across brokerage websites, platforms, portals, PDFs, marketing materials, you name it. So most sources provide one part of the picture or a section of the market, and that makes it really difficult to develop a holistic view of the market. And it forces CRE professionals, investors, economic developers to spend too much time finding that information that they need, combining disparate sources, and determining whether that data can be trusted or not. So Resimplify does that heavy lifting. We identify, structure, verify, and maintain that commercial real estate inventory across thousands of resources. So what role do we play in this partnership? And the question that we're answering is the supply side of what is available. That includes properties that are for sale and for lease, individual availabilities, spaces, development sites, and inventory across major commercial property types. We like to say we cover anything but a house. By bringing that information together, we help remove the need to search across disconnected sources and provide a more broad, holistic view of what's actually available on the market at that time. One thing that I want to really mention is, especially in this age of AI and so much data being available, is the integrity of the data. And that's central to really everything we do here at Resimplify. We're not simply collecting listings and then displaying them without any further review. We, of course, leverage AI today and technology in-house to identify and structure that inventory at scale. As you see here, we're tracking over 2 million listings across the United States. So we track that inventory and then applying verification processes to improve confidence in one, the listing, and two, the information that's actually being presented. That could include reviewing the original source, looking at supplementing information, additional attachments, and then making sure that we're confirming that availability when the additional validation is needed. Data provenance is a big thing today, and it's a major part of building trust because data needs to be accurate, needs to be AI ready in this day and age. And in simple terms, users need to be able to understand where that information is coming from. So whenever we can, and most times we do, we provide the original source URL and direct users back to that source. They can review the original listing, they can access the supporting materials within that listing that was included initially, and then understand where that information came from versus blindly trusting it in some database. Devin, do you mind changing the slide, please? Thank you. So commercial real estate availability changes constantly. Suites are leased, properties sell, pricing changes. We internally average over 2,000 listings per day in terms of updates and new listings going off market. So it's really important to continue to verify. Another big problem that we need to solve or that needs to be solved is listings can also remain online even after that opportunity has gone off market. So we don't verify once, we verify and update 3 times a week to make sure that we have the most current view of the market. And the value isn't really having more data, it's about having data that you can trust and that you can use with greater confidence. So in a nutshell, our goal is to reduce the distance between finding that information, what's available on market, and then acting on it. Devin, I think you're muted.
Sorry, guys. As Vicky was saying, they cover everything but the household. And what we like to think about at Sensei is we actually cover the household. So I'm going to go back a couple slides. And what we're going to do is in a minute here, I'm going to open up the platform and give you a full demo of how we've integrated all of the Resimplify data into Sensei. But first, I want to talk a little bit about how do we go through our verification process as well. And then really, what was the core problem that we were facing between what we were seeing in the market and what we are actually offering. So I take it back a little bit. We talk about things like our data goes the deepest. I mentioned earlier today, we start with that proprietary data set of 270 million adults, and then we build from the bottom up. So as Vicky said, they cover everything but the household. We are covering the household and how those individuals are interacting within any given market. So we have dozens of behavioral and lifestyle touch points on these individuals. We go through a 6 weeks match and cleanse process to ensure these individuals live where they say they live and are who they say they are before we update our data on the front end. What's really unique about our data and how weave so nicely into building out trade areas together with Resimplify's listings data is because we have an individual, we have that individual's address, which means that we are able to really easily identify who's living within a trade area and, quote unquote, what do they look like in terms of consumer spending power or household composition, education, and whether or not they're in a market where we're seeing really strong signals for things like economic job growth or, rising rental rates. And then on top of that, we've layered some custom metrics. So Vicky's totally right when what he said, they bring to Sensei the supply side. What we really wanted to offer with Sensei was an opportunity for individuals to start eliminating disparate data sources and be able to start from a lens of what's happening on the demand side from a consumer and how is that driving market decisions for investors, anyone in ECDev, analysts, brokers, developers, how those decisions were being made, but also bringing to the forefront of Sensei what opportunities exist instead of having to platform switch from there. So I think, Vicky, maybe I cover the problem and the solution there, but I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think you said it really well. It's you provide the demand side intelligence when it comes to what the entire problem we're trying to solve, and then we bring the supply side. So together, it's a pretty cohesive solution.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and take a look through the platform. I'm going to use uh, this demo to walk through if I was coming into the platform and I was trying to understand I was trying to understand markets I don't really have a lot of background on. How do I go from market diligence all the way down to site selection? So I'll go ahead and open the platform and then I'll give you guys a little tour through it. Vicky, cut me off if there's something you want to add in. And then if you guys have questions, please feel free to post them in the queue. We will take them as they come up, as long as they're within context. Otherwise, we will have a Q&A at the end of our webinar today. All right, let me expand this for everyone. So I think you should be able to see the screen. Vicky, are you able to see everything okay?
Yes, yeah, everything looks good.
Excellent. So when you come into the Sensei platform, we of course are, like everyone else, wrapping our heads around what is the best way to integrate AI into our platforms and your daily workflow. So we have an AI, but I'm going to skip through that. And what I'm actually going to do is go into our market screening tool that we have to get an understanding of what's happening across markets in the US. So we come into market screening. We have a number of different popular screens that our clients use most often, but I'm going to stick with the fastest growing markets. And I'll start at the CBSA level, but then we'll drill down. For the purpose of today's demo, I'm going to stick between county and CBSA, but everything is done inside the platform at the zip code. As a user, if you're trying to get more granular data at a block group, we of course offer that. But within the platform, we do aggregated analysis done at the zip code level, and then we do custom trade areas where you can build out from a centroid of a commercial address or mailing address, a 135-mile or custom radius around your area. So without going any further, what I'm going to do is we have CBSAs, and just going to change my timeline so that we go back until the second quarter of 2025. So we get that full 1 year look back. And I'm going to add a population size on here. Let's just do like 700,000 just to kind of stick within that secondary and gateway market level. So what we get is we now get a list of the fastest growing markets across the US with some of those core indicators from the demand side. So what's the population? What do we see from market growth? And what's the median income of an area? Really those strong indicators of market health from movement population side of things. So we have a number of different markets that we see that are pulling up. But what we can do is let's go ahead and see if we can take a look at, I don't know, let's do Charleston. Everyone always loves Charleston. See what else we have on the next page. Let's go back, take a look. Let's go ahead and view Charleston as a market. We can open up our market report, and what we're going to get is our KPIs across the top, where we are looking at Sensei forecast, investability. These are custom metrics, mortgage affordability, rental affordability, where we are identifying areas that are the most opportunistic for investing. And when I talk about what's opportunistic for investing, I'm taking it from the lens, again, always of the demand side of the equation. So we're thinking about things like increase in rental rates, population growing over short and medium term, crime or safety in a given area, vacancy rates for residences, to really give us a good understanding of, is this a place I really want to put some capital into? We look at mortgage affordability, the median income, that's a custom Sensei metric, as well as rental affordability. Here you get all of your domestic migration trends. And then we have all of our top migration routes. So who's moving in and out of Charleston, South Carolina? I think when you look at this list, nothing's super surprising. We see tons of local moves. You're getting a little bit of the New England with New York moving down, but otherwise, you're really moving from CVSAs in and around the Charleston area. So you have a little bit of Northern Virginia, a little bit of Boston, Philly. Other than that, though, you're really looking at areas like Greenville, Charlotte. Get into lookalike markets. So this identifies markets that are similar, and this is a great jumping off point. So we can see that Richmond, Virginia is a similar market to South Carolina, and I'm sure everyone that's part of our webinar today has been following the news, and we know that Richmond is really one of the markets that have experienced a lot of economic growth over the past few years. They've put in a new children's hospital. They've seen very high levels of job growth. They've seen income growth. It's really one of those markets along the Eastern Seaboard that there's a lot of potential for. So we can take a look at Richmond. But what's really great is we could go ahead and scroll down, get all of our demographics. And don't worry, Vicki, I promise I will get to the listings. But we can go ahead and we can say, okay, let's take a look at, sorry?
Hey, Devin.
Yes.
It looks like your screen might be frozen. We're not seeing the market pulled up.
1 second. Let me refresh.
Devin, I think it's okay. I thought it was just
I know what it is.
Yeah.
Gosh, we missed all this, guys.
Fastest growing markets.
Sorry.
Table.
This is the way our share works on here. There we go. Now you guys can see everything. Thank you, Abby, for letting me know. So you're seeing the market report now, right, Vicki?
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay,
Perfect.
excellent. So when I switch tabs, I'll be sure to share back. So we jumped from market screeners over into a market report. Just a quick review. You have all of our commercial listings. We will come back to that definitely. But then we're going down and we're like, okay, South Carolina, Charleston, excellent market for investment. I think it's hitting all of the things that I really want to see when I start thinking about where is my next investment. You come across lookalikes and we see an area like Richmond. So what we're going to do is we are going to head down all of our demographics. We're going to go down through the bottom. We're actually going to create a comparison report where we look at Richmond from our lookalikes. I'm going to grab Richmond and we'll go back up and we'll compare our selected. So now we're able to look at these two markets side by side. What we see is we have our Charleston market next to our Richmond market. We can see the population in Richmond is a little bit larger. Sensei forecast, we still project positive growth, a little bit higher for Charleston than Richmond. But what we're seeing is it's a stronger median income as well as really high affordability for individuals moving into the area. These are pretty strong signals that there is more opportunity for population growth and what we would expect to see in the medium term. Their trends look relatively similar. Again, we are talking about areas that are relatively close together, so we are seeing a lot of similar migration routes. The one thing to call out here is you are getting a lot of that influx from the Northern Virginia area where you are having a lot of affluent individuals move from Washington, D.C. metro area down into Richmond, which could give you an indication that you might anticipate to see higher levels of income flowing into the area. And you can see that alone when we just switch over to our inflows. People moving in to Richmond tend to be a little bit wealthier or have a little bit more income than those moving into Charleston. And we can also see that the education, those owning a bachelor's degree or higher, is a bit higher than we look at Charleston. So knowing that, I actually want to change my search here over to Richmond, Virginia. Type in, oh, I pulled up the county. Let me do that once more. We want to go back to the CVSA. We're going to bring in the metropolitan area for Richmond. So we've just done market health, and we have a pretty good indication that Richmond might be our next market. But from here, this is where we've integrated all of our commercial listings. So at this point, I can go ahead and select View All Commercial Listings. And we're going to get all of the properties that are available from Resimplify. A couple highlights is whenever you click on any of these properties, as Vicki mentioned, we always have the link where you can go ahead and view the original listing, but you can also check out a trade area report. We start with 1 mile, but I'll show you how you can customize that shortly after. We have filters across the top. So Vicki mentioned you have for lease or for sale markets. We're going to go ahead and select for sale. And for the purpose of this, we're going to look at something like, let's do retail. Sorry. And then we're going to go ahead and we can hit a price range on here. We'll keep it under 2.5 million. But as you can see, you have tons of filters available to you as you're going through your commercial listings and trying to work through what properties are available in a market after you have identified the market for site selection. But we're going to take it one step further by pulling out a trade area report. And the beauty of the trade area report is at face value, Richmond might look like an incredible market for investment. But as soon as you pull up that trade area, you're going to get that really granular look at individuals already living in the area. We're not talking about people who are transient and moving through Richmond throughout the day. We're talking about people who are living there and building their livelihood around where they live already. So it's a slightly different lens on how we're thinking about consumer demand. We have some additional filters if you are looking for specific zoning classifications, if it's Class A or Class C in terms of the property itself, and then cap rates as well. I'll stick right here. We did for sale with retail in and around the Richmond metropolitan area. We can go ahead and zoom in. And just see, take a look at this one. This is an inactive one, so I'll switch. It will always notify you if something is active or inactive. But here we have a piece right here where you're able to see the zoning, when it was last sold, and then you can go ahead and generate your trade area report. So at this point, we've generated our 1 mile trade area. You can go ahead and opt to make that larger or smaller. But you can get an idea of what's sort of around based on this map. You can zoom in a bit. You can see that you are in a shopping center area. There's a lot right around where you are. And then you can go ahead and get that same idea of what's happening on the ground for the property that you are looking at. So you have your median income for individuals living here. Now this is a 1 mile trade area. So yes, the population looks a little bit smaller. It's about 5,600. You have your rental affordability. You have an investability score. And then you have your rental rates. You also get your migration flows, all of your population and demographics. And I went through this a bit more quickly when we had first gone in and we're looking, but when you're looking at your population and demographics, not only can you look at what does the general population look like, but we're also able to look at how does it look for individuals moving in compared to those who are moving out. So for this particular trade area, you have inflows with a very marginal difference between the income of individuals moving out. Your average household is smaller. And then you have things like your education rate. This is an area that really doesn't have children in the households. And then you have your migration outflows. Of course, as you always should be when you're looking at very small trade areas, you are going to start to see smaller population counts. But you'll continue to get your split between renters and homeowners. And then you get down to the demographics, as well as your commute. So if you're looking at how far can I reach with this particular listing, how far can I get in 15 minutes, 30 minutes, walk versus bike? And really, how do I think about how this sets me up for success? Last thing is we have employment trends for the county that this address is in. So this is in Bon Air County in Virginia. You get, pretty decent job growth over the last year and really solid over the last quarter. And then that is your trade area report. You are at this point able to go back into commercial listings and explore other listings. But that's really how we come full circle, thinking about how do we move from just understanding the demand side of the equation into how do we start thinking about what's available on the supply side. Vicki, I don't know if you have anything that you wanted to add there at that point, but I would say that Resimplify's listings has really allowed us to sort of come full circle in what we're offering and the flexibility that we get on the ground.
Yeah, no, it looks awesome. And I guess one question I have, and for the audience too, for the trade area reports and really all the analytics you have, who can use this? Who can use the platform? Who would really benefit from looking through all the data and then being able to pinpoint to what location they want and then seeing if it's good or not?
Yeah, great question. So we work with a variety of different clients in this space already. I would say it really depends. We work within the investment space. We work with developers. We also work with economic developers as well. One thing I would say is it depends how dirty you want to get your hands in the data for whether or not we would say use the platform or get bulk data. I would say if you are trying to do site selection, you should 100% of the time always be using the platform because that's when you get access to be able to look at commercial listings. If you're looking at, utilizing bulk data, then we would say, hey, you should also be talking to Vicki so that you can bring in listings. But where we're seeing a lot of traction is really for our analysts who are going in, looking to understand market research, understand how markets are changing, and then be able to identify properties.
Yeah, I really like the lookalike markets because if someone's pinpointed on a market, but then they realize, okay, this may not have the supply that I'm looking for, then you have something ready for them so that they can look at the next market or the next market to maybe set up their new store or new plant or whatever they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I really love the market screeners and I would love to switch back to that and show you guys more, but I know that really impacted the share screen, so I'm almost hesitant. But I really love the ability to identify markets that look like ones that you're interested in. Like I've had really good success in Richmond, but we want to start expanding. Where's the next market that we go to? And that's when you start to get a lot of value from lookalikes. We'll always give, we use like a K nearest neighbors clustering algorithm. We'll always give you 10 markets that look like the one that you're in. But it is a really fast way to compare them. And then of course, you have the comparison reports. So you can almost identify your market before you go into commercial listings, or, you come into commercial listings with 5 markets and you start to look at how many properties are already available there. Are there any for sale? Maybe they're for lease and that's what I'm interested in. And when we go into webinar prep, we're using the platform to build our own narratives and to look at what's happening on the ground. So it is really great for market intelligence to really, identify what is valuable to you as a consumer of the data.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I think that's everything that we had for the demo part of it. I think, Vicki and I have been talking about interesting ways, interesting things that we are both working on over the coming months, and interesting things that we are looking at Sensei of how to use Resimplify data. But I think, Vicki, I'll start, but just to share with you some things we are working on our side of Sensei is, one, how do we use Resimplify data to be even more innovative or insightful for our users. And some of the ideas we're currently working through is, does the number of listings give you an understanding of market saturation? What does that mean for demand in the market? And how does that play back into our investability score? A second area that we are working on currently, and we anticipate to have into production by the end of the third quarter, is what we are calling construction intensity. And I think being able to layer on construction intensity together with available listings in an area will also lend the idea of how saturated a market really is. What construction intensity means to us is our ability to understand how much supply in terms of things like wood and fiber and gypsum, which goes into drywalling for commercial residences, how much of that is being purchased in any given zip code. And are we seeing that go up or down in one market this month compared to the last 3 months, that sort of thing. So that's really exciting. But I think putting that together with a great overlay of the commercial listings in the database is going to bring a really strong perspective for how investable is this area. Are we seeing the Sun Belt start to slow down? Have they already hit levels of development where it would not be beneficial to invest more capital into those markets? Or are they going to continue to grow at the speed that they are growing? So those are the two exciting things that we have planned, outside of the fact that we are launching our API next week. But that's kind of what's on the horizon for Sensei. Anything on the horizon for Resimplify?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of work in-house to increase how much data we're going out and collecting. So we collect a good amount of data, but there's always going to be more out there, and then better ways for us to verify and then enrich those listings. So we're working a good bit with the team to identify those additional people that we may have not collected, or trying to get additional data, direct relationships with brokerages as well, direct relationships so that we can have a good channel between them. A lot of listings will have good PDFs, supplementing information, attachments. So being able to go into those and collect additional structured fields is great, because a lot of times on the listings, the broker may only have 5 fields and the rest may be buried in a description or maybe within a PDF, but there's a lot of gold within those PDFs. And we're seeing the fill rates as we start to run these enrichments and or extract the data. It's very promising. So we're hopefully, the goal is to collect as much data as we can, verify it as much as you can, and then so that the user and the consumer can have the most confidence within the data or with the data.
I mean, we're definitely really excited for that. The more data, the better from our side of things. So excellent. I think that covers everything that we had planned for today's webinar. So please, if anyone has any questions, we'll stick around for a couple more minutes. But then, feel free to reach out to both Vicki and I over LinkedIn. We're happy to have continued conversations and demo both of our data sets with you guys. And thank you so much for joining.
Hey, Devin, we had a question come through.
Sure.
Can trade areas be defined by drive time or custom shapes, or only by fixed radius? And can they be pulled using the API?
Oh, great question. Yes and yes. When you build a trade area, you can, let me switch back to my screen. I can show you guys. When you're building a trade area from scratch, so you saw that I had done, I did it fluidly from one part of the platform to another. But when you are in platform doing it, you can create a trade area report. Gosh, I'll do it. Do this address right here. Actually, you know what? I'll just do an address that I have. So you can type in an address. You can go ahead and select next. And then when you're there, you actually can choose between transportation time versus distance, being a 1, 3, or 5 mile radius. And I think this does matter. It's a great question for whoever asked it. I think it does matter depending on how densely populated an area that you are looking for investment in. Because if we are looking at, a 1 mile radius in Manhattan, that's going to look, one, that's a very large area for an extremely densely populated listing. But it's going to look a lot different, whether that's, a 30-minute bike ride in Manhattan might get you 2 miles, where a 30-minute bike ride in DC is going to get you all the way to Dulles Airport. So I think that's a great question. You are able to toggle between the two. You are able to see how much ground you are covering with that, based on mode of transport and the distance that you are driving. So that's the first thing that you can do. Trade areas will also be available inside of our API. You will be able to use any address in the United States. Candidly, we are using Smarty Streets to generate our addresses. So you will be able to go ahead and type in any address that you have and get a trade area report back and your selected demographics for that area inside of our API.
Devin, I have another question if you're ready.
Yes.
Is it possible to access Sensei data within AI tools?
No. I'm assuming this is a question around whether or not you're connected to Claude with an MCP or something of that nature. Currently, no. You are not able to with our data with Sensei. Is that coming in the future? It's something we're absolutely exploring. I think there's been a lot of very fast evolving things in the AI space. So right now we are trying to do a really well scoped analysis of how does that better enable our customers to move faster through their decision making. Ultimately our goal for each of you is to get you to a yes or no as quickly as possible. So it could be on the horizon for sure. But right now, you're able to get data via a pipeline in Snowflake or an API, which is shortly being released.
All right, we have another one. You touched on data and it impacts, sorry, it's loading. You touched on data provenance and AI's impact on data in general. So can you touch on how you handle conflicting information from multiple sources?
Yeah, Vicky, do you want to talk about how you handle that at Resimplify, or do you want me to touch on that first with Sensei?
Yeah, you can go first and then I can follow.
Yeah, so when we are bringing in, I think the best place that we see this is with, well, two different things. The first, which is, why we've partnered with companies like Resimplify and Vicky, is because data integrity is hugely important to us as a company. Having been in this space for only a few years, you start to see that there's a lot of data that floods the market. So being able to really spend time on diligence and ensuring that the data that you are using is, best in class or most accurate, most precise data on the market is very important to us, which is, why we spend tons of time in our QA process. So I mentioned before, we're 6 weeks long on QA before we do a data refresh. But for Sensei data in particular, especially around the migration data, we go through several processes to ensure that we are using the most accurate data in the market. The first is when we have a flag that someone has moved, we cross-reference that with our other sources. So we use several sources to bring in that individual level data. We have about 3 different ways that we do that. And then we cross-reference that each of those sources are, quote unquote, like beating to the same drum to ensure that it is valid data. The second thing, another area that we see this creep up a bit is inside of our metrics. I mentioned that we do median income as a custom metric through Sensei. That's our own proprietary model. We tried everything that was available on the market. IRS was too slow, especially when you're looking at inflows and outflows. At best, you're waiting 2.5 years to get that data from the IRS. So we built our own income model. But one of the sources that we used was our own survey panel that one of our other teams and capabilities have built in-house. So that survey goes through an identity verified process. if anyone's ever worked with surveys in the market, there is a lot of fraud that goes into it. So in order for us to receive that data from a survey respondent, that survey respondent needs to match back into our database, and it has to match on a set number of criteria to ensure that it is the person that we thought took the survey. So those are a couple of things that we do on our own side for how we source and bring in data. But just like every other company, we go through a very long validation process if we're bringing third-party data in. We know our data is different from the US Census, so that's a common question that we get. I would say, though, if we really felt that the US Census data was always accurate, we probably wouldn't be in this position where we are bringing a similar data set to market. So we anticipate to see differences. I think it is a more challenging conversation that we have with individuals, because you want to be different from census, but you don't want to be too different from census. And so that's created, an area that we've spent a lot of time crafting the accuracy around our data and really being able to tell the narrative of our method. Yeah, I was kind of long-winded there, Vicky, but I'm going to let you.
That was great. That was a great answer. So for us, on-market status is tough because you need to be able to verify if the listing is there, if it's on market. So for us, and through research we've done internally, we found that the brokerage website or the broker's page, so I guess their page on the brokerage website, is the best source to go to. We found that that's the first place that a brokerage or broker will make a listing go live, make any updates before they make any updates anywhere else that they are posting listing. So that is our main source of truth. That is the single source of truth for us. Now, you're always gonna run into issues where maybe they're updating it somewhere else first before their brokerage shop, and that's why we have a manual team as well that make sure that they go in and fill in the gaps. If there is an issue and a client brings up, hey, this is wrong, we're going to try our best to go solve that. There's only so much we can do as the person in the Richmond market or the Charleston market or the boots on the ground. So we try to be as perfect as we can, but we understand that it is really hard to do that. However, combining technology with human verification can help bridge that gap and ensure that we are getting the best source of information.
I think that's awesome. I think just one other thing you hit on was, having your clients come to you. I think for us, the way we treat our partnership with Resimplify is the same way we treat our partnership with our clients too. Like, we want to hear from you and we want to know what you're seeing. Because if you're seeing something, then we want to take, that third or fourth look at why it's not meeting your initial expectations or what you had thought you were going to see when you opened up a report. So we try and, we want to be partners with you in your decision making, and really making sure that you're getting the best data that's out there on the market.
And that is all the questions we have for today.
Excellent. Well, Vicky, thank you for joining me in our webinar today. And everyone else who had joined, we really appreciate the time that you set aside to join, and your forgiveness for my screen sharing problems in the beginning. But I hope you were able to get something really insightful out of this. And again, please feel free to reach out to Vicky or myself following this webinar. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Devin, for the opportunity to be on this webinar. The partnership's been great. I'm excited to see where we can go with it. I know we're really in the starting stages, so stay tuned, everyone. We're going to do some cool stuff together. So thanks, everyone, for attending today.
See ya.